Hello, how are you today? How are your ancestors doing? Have you found something new? Please share it with us. We are so excited to have you here for another episode of Genealogy Quick Start. Please definitely subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube. Just hang out with us as much as you can. Today, we have two new quick starts for you to help you with learning who your ancestors are. First up will be between the lines of intestates. Do you know what intestate means? Well, I'm sure you do, but what it means is when your ancestor dies without a will. I used to cry and say, I don't have all that wonderful stuff that other people have. But Jim is going to show you how to get to the goodies so that you can find all those clues that people whose ancestors might have died with wills, you'll be able to find them. Jim's going to show you. And I am going to do a quick start for you tonight, a quick start that is near and dear to my heart. And it's about researching Green Book businesses. Do you have an ancestor or a town that had Green Book locations? What is the Green Book? We're going to talk about that when I do my quick start. So you know what to do. We love to know who's here. Please put where you are. And if you're a member of a genealogy group, put that in there too. Give a shout out to your group. And of course, everyone should be members of genealogy groups. Why wouldn't you? It's like free money. Genealogy groups are places where you find people that are like you. Your family doesn't want to hear all the little minutia and the little details, the stuff that really gets us charged up. You should be a member of a genealogy group. There's absolutely no reason to not be a member when Zoom, all of us are doing Zoom. So not only can you join a genealogy group in the states that you're researching, like Pennsylvania or New Jersey or California, but you also can join a local genealogy group with people that are near to you so that you have a little clique that hang out with. So without further ado, I want to bring on one of the best quick starters in the world, columnist and editor, James M. Beidler. Hello,
Yes.
Jim. How you doing today?
I'm not going to ask you how many quick starters in the world there actually are. We're just going to let that go.
You're the tops, Jim. Who do we have here with us? We have Cindy Cruz, cold and snowy Topeka, Kansas. Hello, Cynthia. I called you Cindy. I'm sorry, I'm being all familiar. Cynthia
You
Cruz.
can do that. She's my cousin Cindy. You can call her several times over from just about every family in the Tulpehocken of Pennsylvania.
Hello, Cindy. Hello, Angela Allen, who is responsible for the Black and Gold being here, Chicago's African American genealogy group, and she's here by way of Texas. Hello, Jenny. The intestate wills are the best. Oh, yes, they probate is where life lives, right? And we have the president of the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. Hello, Valerie Ann. Thank you so much for being here. So, without further ado, Jim, I am so excited for this quick start because, I'll share my story later, but I thought my ancestors had land, but they didn't have any wills. I'm not going to be able to find anything. So I'm really looking forward to the tips that you're going to share when you talk about, oops, that's the wrong one. When you talk about between the lines of intestates. So before we get started, Jim, like I didn't tee you up for this, but for in your own research, would you say that the majority had wills or the majority of them did not have wills? How does it look in your research?
It depends on whether you're talking about my Berks County ancestors or my Lebanon County ancestors.
Oh,
Yeah, most of my Berks County ancestors were the old Tulpehocken stock. That's Western Berks County, and most of them did have wills. When you're talking my Lebanon County ones, both personally and others that I have investigated, most of them are dirt freaking poor, and you can't find any reference to them in any type of probate, let alone a will. Uh,
wow.
yeah, now that's anecdotal. I don't know how typical I am, but yeah. So there's both sides of the coin on that.
Okay, so that's why you are a master of both wills and no wills. So, sorry your buddy's not here. I hate when I pretend that the person who we are expecting, Michael John Neal, will not be here with us tonight, but he will be back. All right. So, are you ready, Jim, to get started with this quick start?
Absolutely, but let's shout out Marie in PG County who just logged in here. So
Hey, Marie, how are you doing? A member of OGS. Is cold in PG County? Yes, I know it's probably cold. We were watching yes. So thank you so much, Jim, for reminding me to say hello to Marie. Thanks for being here, Marie. So let's get started with our quick start between the lines of intestates. So, step one you have down is seek out intestate relatives. So, Jim, how do you figure out whether your ancestor had a will or did not? What would be the steps there?
yeah, well, usually the wills are the low hanging fruit, and most and okay, most of my research is 1700s or the first half of the 1800s. Genealogists have been abstracting those wills forever. Uh, and so for most counties of the U.S., I'd say at least up until 1850, they've been abstracted. Most of them are on Family Search, at least the will book copy of those wills. They're the most basic of the probate documents. Uh, when we're talking about someone dying without a will, that's when we get into the more exotic documents.
Mm.
Because with dying with a will or dying testate, you got the will, you take it to the courthouse, and you get it recorded and witnessed, and an estate opened. You go from there, and the everything as far as distributing the assets of the deceased goes according to the will, unless somebody files a caveat to it, and tries to upset it. Sometimes that works. Usually it does not. But whereas intestate, that's all by the laws of the particular state. As far as because people fashionably think, oh, the widow will get everything. Well, no. Uh, Usually in an intestate situation, I shouldn't say usually, in Pennsylvania, that's what I know. The widow will get a share, and the rest of the kids will get equal shares, and then it'll get more complicated if there is no widow, if there are no children. Uh,
Ah.
yeah, and we'll get into that in some of the future steps. And I should say also you might go further than relatives. The examples I'm going to show are not actually relatives of me.
Oh.
Uh, they're one to show a multi-child, multi-heir situation, and what happened to real property. And then the others are from some of the missing heirs cases that I have handled over the years that always had some exotic aspects to them. I think because I did them all for one particular attorney, and he was the solicitor for a county coroner's office in Pennsylvania. And I could tell as time went on, if it was an easy case, he did it himself. When it was a tougher case or when it was dealing with kind of people he didn't really want to get his hands dirty with, then I got the case. So, and as I'll describe some of these, it got me it got me into some interesting situations. So
Fantastic. So just go to like Family Search or Ancestry, look for those abstracts. It's going to be fairly easy to determine if they have a will or not. And if they don't have, you don't find a will, then you're going to follow Jim's quick start, right, Jim?
yeah, you'll start with the naming of an administrator because
Oh,
somebody
well,
has
well, well,
what?
are you moving on past the step one?
Maybe.
Okay. All right, so we seek out those people who don't have wills, list them
Yeah.
out. And then step two, you want to get all the documents for the intestate. So, where are these documents?
Yeah. Well, there's as they say in the detective shows, there's the easy way and there's the hard way. And the easy way, some more and more courthouses, they have their files organized as full estate files, where every type of document relating to the estate is all in one folder. Hopefully, they may have been digitized either by Ancestry or by Family Search, and you can get them online. The hard way is if they still have all the administration bonds together, if they still have the inventories all together, the appraisals all together, and you've got to put together a buffet line of all these documents for the estate. Uh,
I love
so
that. So, um, so I've noticed that and I've never understood why they were separated. Is that a jurisdictional issue, a county issue, a time period issue? If you see them inventory separated, does that mean that there aren't like estate packets where all the stuff is together? Like it's kind of confusing to me.
it is confusing, and to be honest, I don't know why it started out that way. Yeah, maybe some of the things were handled by one county official and some by a different one. I don't know.
Um,
I don't know that, but I
okay.
know in my home county of Berks County, when I first was doing genealogy in the '80s, it was all these separate buckets that you had to go to do that. Then they actually hired a genealogist. This was one of these. Oh my God! Um, and and she put all the estate files together and had them microfilmed by Family Search that way. Um,
Wow.
and so Berks County is a gold standard because it's all the original documents instead of like the recopied wills. You have the original wills with the testator's original signature, the witnesses' signatures, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So we're gathering the documents, whether first we see if there's the big packet, something listed that says like a state, and then the others, we want to look for the pieces. So what are the
Right.
pieces besides if there's inventory and assessment? What other kind of, you said administration books?
Yeah, yeah, and then there are petitions, uh, both to name an administrator, and then petitions to uh, settle the estate, like partition the real estate. And I'll show you some documents on that later on. So all of those, and this is where Jenny, said about more information in intestates. I mean, in a will, depending on what the testator wanted to do with the estate, you may not even have all the people who are going to be heirs named. You might just have equally divided between my children,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
or the frustrating one of the Lebanon County estates I looked into, where he says my 10 children and he only names 9. So so yeah, the intestates, a lot of times they will go into detail, because if you ain't named in those petitions, you ain't getting nothing. You've got to find a way to get your name in that thing. So
All right. So we want to look at those probates and pull. And is it also possible? I'm thinking, even if you have an estate packet, you still want to make sure that there aren't any loose ends, correct? Because
yeah,
who knows
yeah,
what could have.
yeah. You want to look, because generally there also will be, like, again, in Pennsylvania, the probate court is the orphans court. And there will be orphans court proceedings where a
Oh.
lot of the petitions get copied into, and of course it gives the orders of the court. It's I found in Lebanon County sometimes survey maps of
Mm.
the real estate of the people. Yeah, so you can find a lot of good stuff in those orphans court proceedings books.
All right, orphans court. We got all those. A lot of work. So that's the hard way. It feels like that's the hard way.
Yeah,
So you gather all these documents, and step three would be to work out the relationships of the heirs. So for me, the will kind of like you, hopefully, lays out like how they're related, but not always. And so when you're looking at these other records, are they providing clues to relationships in them?
a lot of times they will be explicit if it's a petition by one of the heirs. And again, I'll show you an example of this where it lays out the other people. There are other times when there may not be petitions about the estate, where you may just get the account and the distribution documents, and by the shares you see there is how you may be able to figure out things. And this again depends on what the state law is. In Pennsylvania, let's make it relatively easy. Say there's no widow. There were some children, and including some deceased children. Say there's 5 children. 2 of them are deceased. The 5 children share equally, 1/5. The 2 who are deceased, their 1/5 shares get
Goes for their
divided to the kids. Say each of them have 2 kids. Well, then each of those kids gets a tenth uh,
Right.
of the estate. There's other situations where they all share equally. So that's how you can figure this out by. It doesn't require higher level math, but it may require some math.
The math's not mathing. All right, so you can work out the relationships with the heirs. So I just want to add one thing about these. No, I'm not going to add that. Step four is to do additional research on the heirs. So why do we want to do that? Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Well, because that may then reflect back on the whole family situation. You may get find names of uh, grandchildren that way.
Mhm.
People who might be your cousins. You might even get to the point of people who are still alive and who you might want to correspond with or talk with.
Most definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that. Okay, so look up everybody. All right, in step four, so we can get to your cool documents, you want to locate any additional estates from those folks.
And that's kind of what I was implying about the other errors and everything, and not even necessarily um, relatives' estates, but others of adjoining people in your ancestors' neighborhood, because they may mention your ancestor in some substantive way, as a
And
witness to the will, or made them the executor, where you might be able to get a signature of your ancestor. You know, your ancestor.
ooh.
Yeah, say your ancestor died without a will, and you want a signature of him. You know, if you get him as a witness or an executor, you have a better chance of getting a signature.
And that's the coolest thing in the world about the full text search on Ancestry
Mm,
Lab, Family
mm,
Search Labs. Because you
hmm.
get those witnesses now. Before it was just like, the main folks.
Lost to history. Yeah.
Lost to history. So, Jim, let's look at some of your cool documents you have here. So, first up, we have this here.
Yeah, we got William Creekbaum, and this kind of runs through the basic documents of a late 18th century intestate. Um, and Yeah, this zooms in on the administration bond that they had to post, to that they were going to administer the estate honestly. In this case, it's John Adam Creekbaum, the eldest son, and Peter Creekbaum, the second son of William Creekbaum. They go together as the co-administrators to to get this bond. The implication from this, it's not dead set, but the implication is that he has no widow, that his wife
Mm.
probably predeceased him, because usually in an intestate, if the widow is still alive, she will either be a co-administrator, or you'll have a document in there with her renouncing her right to
Ah,
administer the estate. Yeah.
okay. And you would find these in the bonds, you said?
Yeah, these are the administration bonds, either as uh, part of the probate file, or filed as the administration bonds.
Okay.
And this
I
is
love
just,
all these signatures.
yeah, you got Adam, you got Peter. Then we have, this is a petition from the estate. This is where the rubber really meets the road. And we've got, here in the detail again, we've got Adam, and then who is the petitioner, and then it lists all 9 of the children. It lists the one woman is married, the one daughter is married, Eve, the wife of Adam Emmerich. So you get that. It says that he's got a big plantation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who his adjoiners are, Jacob Swab, George Berger, Nicholas Pontius, and others. And it's 440 acres, which I thought, oh, this is going to be a real juicy partition of the land. Well, hold your hat on that. Go into the next one, uh, and and then go on to the next. This is just setting up the partition, and one more. And one more. Okay. What they did is they put together what they called a sheriff's jury of 12 men from the neighborhood, and generally they'd go to a tavern, and they decide how much this land is worth. And in most cases, 440 acres, you might have that divided in 2, 3, maybe even 4 parts, but they're saying it cannot be divided without spoiling the whole. So I don't know if it was kind of scrappy land or
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
Yeah. So yeah. And here's another, again, neat thing, that this sheriff's jury, they all sign their names to it.
Oh,
So that's another document where you can get somebody's signature. There was a real run on Jacobs in this neighborhood, and 4 of them
Jacob
were named
was the
Jacob. Yeah, yeah, was the Justin of its time. Yeah.
or Jalen. Everybody Jalen now.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea. And then there's one more to this. This
I
is
love
the
these. These are my
yeah.
favorites.
Yep, this is the accounting of the estate. It doesn't actually show the shares being divvied out. A lot of the early ones in Berks County don't, but it at least gives you all the names of people who had claims against the estate.
Your fan club, your cluster, whatever you want to call it. These are the
Yeah.
people we want to know. Who are they, right?
So yeah. So now let's move
Ooh,
on
this
to the
money.
other ones.
All
Where
right.
yeah. Here was this guy Paul Ivanhorn Jr. He was definitely a love him and leave him type. Uh, Couple of three wives, relationships with others. And after lots and lots and lots of digging, I find if we go to do we have a detail one or is this
Let's
detail?
see.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. He's got two daughters from his second marriage and he's got two grandchildren from a completely different relationship. And interesting, I had to do a lot of research to track down one of these daughters. I ended up sending a text and and think and she of course said who the H are you? And she said we want nothing to do with this estate. You know, he was a terrible dad, blah 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 blah. So long story short is I just gave their names to the attorney, and later on I asked him when I had another case. I said, "Yeah, they really turn it down." He said, "Are you kidding? They always take the money." So
What?
yeah. So okay, next up. So this was an estate for a different attorney, and this poor Myrtle Weaver died, and she had no children, never married, parents dead, no siblings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what ends up happening with this one, if we go to the next slide, and then one more, it's a will of how many shots did you have of this thing? It goes to need one more, Shamel. Uh,
Oh, no.
yeah,
Oh, this one? Okay.
yeah. It's a will of her uncle, and now he was deceased too, but she ends up having the only living relative she has are two first cousins once removed, and that was the furthest relation that would be in the money for a Pennsylvania intestate. If you
Oh,
look
so beyond first cousin, you can't. It's like,
beyond first cousin once removed. If it's second cousin, you're out of the money. But a first cousin once removed. And so these two people who probably never even met her ended up splitting her estate. So then
wow.
I think I have one more.
Let me
Do I have one
see. So
more? No.
wait a minute. And
Okay.
so the state just takes the money?
If there are no heirs, then it's what's called as cheating to the state. Uh,
As cheating, not
yeah, not cheating. No. Yeah.
taking people's money. So we have a question about what if you know that they settled an estate in the last few years but didn't include you? So these are great grandfather.
Well, that's gonna mean you're gonna have to file a suit to try to overturn the distribution and claw back money from the people who got it. Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's it. And your cousin says, I find it interesting to read who bought items from the estate in the venue papers. Names of the community members and clues as to their wealth can be inferred from the amount of purchases they made. Wow, very
E-
nice. Yes. You want to
ec-
speak on that?
Excellent point, Cindy. Yep, yep.
Very cool. So I love that. So I have to tell my quick story. I have 20 seconds. So I think it was my first or second time going to where my grandmom was raised. And it was time to go to the airport. But I was like, no, can I just run to the courthouse? And I missed one room. I want to go in this one room. And so I went in this room and I saw this book called Administration. And I was still like a baby genealogist, so I didn't know what it was about. And I opened it up and in there was an administration for my grandmother's grandfather. And because I knew he had like 150 something acres, and it listed every all of his children, where they were living, details about his land. And so I didn't know where everyone had split up and gone to, but now I have all that information. And it listed my grandmother and her brother because their mom was dead, and they said the dad was dead too. That was a clue that they didn't like the dad. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So Jim, thank you so much. Let's run through these steps. I'm going to use these steps because I love estate records. And so when you are between the lines of intestates, step one is to seek out intestate relatives. Step two is to get all the documents for the estate. Step three is to work out the relationships of the heirs. That's the fun part. Step four is to do additional research on the heirs. And step five is to then locate additional estates. So thank you so much, Jim. And of course, you're going to hang out with me, but let us split the show and get ready for our second quick start.
Good deal.
All right, we're back with the second quick start. So this is one that's near and dear to me. So today for this quick start, we're going to talk about researching green book businesses. So I don't know if you know what the Green Book is, but the Green Book, also called the Negro Traveler's Guide, was created in the 1930s, and it was a guide to show safe Black spaces, right? Places where African Americans could feel comfortable to eat, to get a hotel room, to gas up their car, to buy clothes, get their dues done. You know, when you're traveling, you still got to keep your due tight. And so, and the one thing that a lot of people mislabel it as a book of Black entrepreneurs or Black businesses. A lot of Chinese restaurants in there. It wasn't just Black people, but it is a good indicator of a lot of Black entrepreneurs. So this guy named Victor Hugo Green, he was a postal man in New York, and him and his wife Alma, as their side hustle, was to create this book where you could go and travel. And once he retired, it became his full-time hustle. So I encourage you, and the reason why this is so important right now is because this was documenting life during segregation. 1930s, I think they ended in the 60s. And so the people who lived through segregation are disappearing. Okay, they are the last ones to tell that story. And so now is the time to do this research. Would you agree, Jim?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, um, yeah, there's nothing like firsthand. I'm sure there are a lot of notations that as time goes on are a little bit cryptic. But if you're from that area or whatever in firsthand, they can say, "Oh yeah, I know that." That means that was Uncle Henry, and I just gotta say as a white person that this is fascinating, but it saddens me how this book was needed. Not and you're being bright about it, with doing your due, but this is how for Blacks to stay alive instead of getting stuck in a sundown town and not having a safe harbor. And that
Yeah,
just amazes me. Just amazes me.
it does. And I appreciate you saying that, because I
Yeah.
always kind of go to the positive because that's just how I am. But
Because
yeah,
that, yeah,
it's
yeah.
completely ridiculous that people have to have a book so that they can travel the country,
To stay
um,
alive.
to
Yeah.
stay alive. And
Yeah.
my aunt said that, when she was little with my great grandparents, they she'd say, "I want ice cream," when they were driving on the highway. "I want ice cream." And my uncle would go, my great not my uncle, my great grandfather would go into the glove box and pull out a book and look at the book. So think
Yeah,
about that. Before you
yeah,
can go and get it, it's not to try to figure out which one is best, which one is safe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started with the steps to for researching Green Book businesses. So, step 1 is to identify Green Book locations. And so the best way to do this is think the New York Public Library, the reason that they are like one of the top 5, at least in the top 10, I think they're probably like 1, 2, or 3. One of the greatest libraries in the world is because they do things like have a full collection of the Green Book. So if you Google New York Public Library, NYPL, Green Books, you will get all of them. So that is, and I'm going to show you what the Green Book looks like once we go through some of these steps. And so the next one is to, of course, gather genealogy records. So you have your locations and you're really looking for records about that business, about the people who ran the business. And of course, like census records. And the coolest thing is Jim's favorite thing is newspapers. When you look for the business, you'll see legal notices, and that'll tell you who the people were who were applying. And more often than not, they were the proprietors or the managers of these locations. And so, yeah, newspapers are the best. And so once you get the people, then we know what to do as genealogists, right? And land records, those are important deeds as well. And I'm going to show you, and another one of Jim's favorites, home sources. And I am going to show you like the coolest home source for a Green Book location. And it answered a lot of questions for me. So you're going to do what we normally do, and stuff is going to show up for you. And then step 3 is to try to locate the business on maps. This is not an easy thing to do. It's not as easy as you would think. Um, Telephone books help, but addresses change, right? What's 345 now could be like 100, they change. So maps really kind of help with that. And I had one business that it was an amusement park. There's no remnants of that place at all. Like the baby boomers barely remember this place, but a map actually did. So I'm going to show you that. Then step 4, which Jim talked about, were these oral interviews. Seriously, if you want to research during segregation time, please talk to folks. And they want to talk about it, right? They want to talk about this stuff. Conduct those oral interviews. Jim, do you get a chance to have you done many oral interviews? Because you started as a baby genealogist. Did you interview people?
There weren't I did interview a few. Yeah, yeah. There weren't too many who were still alive even when I began at age 24, unfortunately.
Right, right. So do conduct those oral interviews, and then write and share the narratives, because a lot of these places, we're always looking at old, like 19th century stuff. These places, and I fought, like I didn't really want to do this because I'm like, this is too new. But once I thought about it, I was like, you better get on this work right now.
Yeah.
And so let's look at some of the stuff that I have. Let's first look at this is Mr. Victor Hugo Green and his wife Alma, and they talk about how she took over after he died, but I'm sure she was working on it with him all along. And so these are pages in the Green Book. And so for your town, and my town that I was doing for this was Lawnside in Berlin in New Jersey. And so we looked at every single issue 4 Lawnside. And you can see at first in 1938, it was just 1, 2, 3, 4 different places. And then by 1953, you know, they had more than just taverns and roadhouses. They had hotels and beauty parlors and a service station and a recreation park as well. So I went to the, I hadn't seen a phone book in a long time. So I went to the public library and they pointed me to the microfiche, which I had not touched in a very long time. And they had all the phone books. So I started looking them up. And so for some of them, like the Dreamland, you can see an actual address. Mr. Newton's, we have a street address as well. But look at the High Hat Club and the Inman Inn. They both say White Horse Pike and Gloucester Pike. So that's a corner. That could be 4 different that's 4 different corners. So I'm just like, where the heck is this place? We got the deeds. The deeds were not helpful. We knew where the High Hat was, but we didn't know that it was in multiple locations because we needed to do an oral interview. Once we did the oral interview, we found out that the Inman and the Hyatt were in the exact same place. And then it built the new place that we all know in the modern times, Caddy Corner, on the other side of the street. And so if it wasn't for, you know, Joyce Gilchrist Pierce telling us where this place was, we would have been kind of lost.
First-hand testimony. Yeah.
First-hand testimony. Yes. And of course, there's census records. And so this is my Uncle James. My Uncle James had it says that he is an owner of an inn and that his wife is the wife of the inn. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, my Uncle James was all about work. And so he was able to run his business because look how big his family is. He had 16 children. Ooh. And they all worked to earn the money so that he could buy the liquor license and buy everything for that bar. They picked blueberries. They were in the fields. They did everything. And then once he opened, they all worked at the Tippin Inn.
That's great.
And so we talked about the newspapers. Here I can see where he was getting his liquor licenses, and they called them rum licenses. But liquor licenses were far and few between. You had to really be lucky to get a liquor license, connected sometimes, and it was expensive. And so here we have my Uncle James showing up getting his liquor licenses when they were available. And then the legal notices that I was talking about earlier here. And this was another family business, William Wilcox. He had what they called Wilcox Cafe, aka Coochie's. That was his nickname. And he had 14 kids as well. Wow. So Jim, have you used these legal notices in your research?
Well, truthfully, not too much in my personal research because I had all these farmers. You know, I didn't have tavern owners or tradesmen or merchants or anything good like that. But I've seen these in other family research, and I did do a project last year where I had to go through city directories and Yellow Pages books looking for a particular business. It was for some legal case. And it was interesting to see different names changing, but it was the same business. And you wonder why they're changing it, if they're trying to be dodgy or if it's just a new owner. You know, you never quite know these things. So
and that's where you definitely can see like the change in ownership and all of that going on here. So that's the newspapers. Definitely, I think I have some more with the newspapers. Oh, So I learned that Esso, the company Esso, who had gas stations, I guess they were like, I guess they would call them like franchises. They were specifically marketing to African Americans. So you'll see African Americans having these Esso gas stations. But this one at this time, I think he might have been an Esso at one time, but he's an Amoco. And then eventually he was like his own gas station. And he was on a major road through South Jersey called the White Horse Pike. And he was getting robbed all the time. And here was him showing the gun to my Uncle Leon that he used to shoot somebody, actually killed them. It was two brothers and their girlfriend decided to come in there and try to rob him. And they said they didn't know that he was an NRA marksman. And he shot dude dead. And the brother and the girlfriend sped off, but they ended up in court. Um, and and then I didn't know, well, I did know when the New Jersey Turnpike came through, they took some of his land.
Hmm.
And so this is a picture of his wife showing where they were taking the land.
Hmm.
So yeah, you just learn so much in the newspapers. You definitely want to hit the newspapers. I believe I got most of these from Black newspapers. And so this is my Uncle James who had the tipping in. And this is the home source. My cousin Floyd has my Uncle James's phone book. And the biggest question for me was the tipping in was known for getting the big acts like BB King, Ike and Tina Turner. Even when I was doing the interviews, they were like, oh, you go to tipping in for the big stuff. You know, he had a great bar, he had a chicken shack, but the big acts, okay, Big Maybell, like you name them, they were at the tipping in.
Hmm.
And so, how did this, like you say, he was like, working in a shipyard. How did he get these big acts? And so, by looking through his phone book, it actually showed how he got these big acts. And my cousin Floyd said it's just like a basic book. And in here, he had the names of a man called Georgie Woods. He was a DJ. They called him Georgie Woods, the man with the goods.
Yeah.
And so my great uncle grew up in Philly before they came over to Jersey. He knew Georgie Woods. So when these acts would come to the station, he'd say, hey, oh, they're performing for, this white crowd here. Well, on their way to Atlantic City, can they stop here and do some sets? And they would. And so not only did he know Georgie Woods, he also knew a man named Kay Williams, but he knew the DJs. He knew the DJs. And so we were able to prove this because here it is sitting right here in his book.
They were all part of his fan club. Yeah.
They were all a part of his fan club. Yes. I love that. And pictures. Oh my goodness. Facebook has turned out to be an amazing space for pictures. If whatever neighboring towns, your town, follow the historical society, follow any site that will post old pictures, because they're not necessarily just posting old pictures of their town. Haddonfield United is like, Haddonfield's the next town over, and they post old pictures of all over South Jersey. And this is one of Newton's service station that I found, just popped up one morning when I was doom scrolling. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, positive. I'm finding historical pictures. Now, there's a place called Lawnside Park. Everyone knows in South Jersey and Philly about Lawnside Park. Lawnside Park was, I thought, just Eve Sham, where there's a whole bunch of barbecue joints, right? But no, it was an actual amusement park with a Ferris wheel, carousels. They had go-karts. They had a pool. They had a lake went through it. They had a baseball field. They also had the Cotton Club, which is the only adult entertainment on that side. But I never saw it because it was all woods. And so I went to historic aerials, and I was able to get this map, and you can see in this yellow, you can see structures here that shows that there was. And sorry, I did get a subscription, and then I let everybody else use it. I forgot to get it for my map here, but I will read up. But no, here are all of these different structures, and this park could hold over 5,000 people. And I believe that it is the first African American park in New Jersey. And I just need to prove that. But people came from Philly. They would have bus loads coming over. They would have buses leaving from certain spaces in Philly on the hour on the weekend sometimes, just to bring them over, because African Americans were not allowed in the parks.
Yeah.
We have Clementon Park, which is very famous here. Blacks couldn't go into Clementon Park. And then eventually they'd say they would have what they called dark days. So, like, one day a week, African Americans would be allowed to come to the park.
Okay.
So that is why African Americans felt very proud to come over and hang out at Lawnside Park. And so, once you do this work, it's really important to go ahead and map it. I was actually on a project, a part of the New Jersey team, me and another genealogy researcher, and Andrea McDonald, and my cousin Floyd. And their main thing was, there were architects. They wanted to know all the extant locations, which buildings still survive. And even if they don't survive, where was the location? So we needed to find the latitude and the longitude so that they could put them on a map. And as it turns out, let's see, is it on here? Nope. As it turns out, all of our information became a part of a national um, site called the Architecture of the Negro Traveler's Guide. And
Wow.
it is a site through the University of Virginia. And if you go there, just Google UVA Green Book. That's how I get to it. But they have a lot of states. All the states have not put stuff up, but they have a map of the states and where these locations were, and they are inviting people to share narratives, and I'll talk about that in a second.
That's great.
And so oral interviews are a must. Like, seriously, I learned so much. So I got about 8 people. This guy right here, he's the grandson of Wilcox Cafe. My cousin Gilbert and his sister Anna, they are the children of the Tippin' Inn. They did interviews. And then we had other people who were living during that time period, went into these places, knew what they were like. They brought the places to life. You want to talk to these people, because the one thing that I learned is, all these Jersey people, they didn't know about the Green Book. They didn't know about the Green Book growing up, but they did know what it was like when they crossed that Mason-Dixon line and went down south. And they said, and this almost kind of made me want to cry, because I do this today, um, leaving in the middle of the night, like 3 in the morning, so that you could get to your destination before the sun went down.
Yeah.
And I used to think that we did that just to get an early start and get out before traffic. But this was something that was passed down to us from our ancestors. Get on the road, in home in the middle of the night, so that you can make your destination without having to stop, and get there before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Um, I also carry a lot of food in my, I always travel with food. Um, because of my great grandparents. I traveled with my great grandparents, and there was never a time we did not get in the car with a basket of food, not like chips and stuff, but full meals. And that is because Black safe spaces were far and few in between.
Yeah.
And when people say that stuff isn't passed down generationally, it actually is, because
Sure.
I don't know, I never lived a segregated life, but I behave in a segregated, I still live that life, which is kind of weird to me. So yeah. And so finally, these are some of the questions. So I wasn't just asking about the Green Book locations, I was asking about what life was like for segregation, um, and then what it was like traveling while Black. I asked about the Green Book locations, and I also asked about integration. Like, what was integration like for you? Because they were kind of the crossover. We don't know what that life was like, but it was traumatic. For no one said it was a great thing. It was a thing that needed to happen, but everyone, the trauma was in their face of not being attended to in school. One person that was not a part of this, but when she went to first to third grade, the school segregated. They just put the Black children in a gym. That was it. And when she graduated high school, the only thing that she could read on her diploma was her name, because they didn't care. They didn't care. And I heard that again and again in school, the trauma that these children that they went through as children. And it was really eye-opening and sad. Yes, Dr. Shelley, generational trauma. That's exactly what it was. And so one of the things that was important to me was, get these narratives up and talk about what life was like. And I like to call it Black joy, because just because we're not allowed in your spaces, we have our own thing, which one of the interviewers said, Ron Vogues, we had our own thing. It wasn't right, but they had a good time. And so I wanted to capture what that looked like. And this is a picture of the hi-hat, one of the most famous ones, one of the Green Book locations that lived on through my childhood as well. And I think that is all of them. Yes, they are. So those are, so let's see, Emily. Oh, my Emily. How are you, Emily? Emily said, my family traveled south either by train in a sleeper car or by automobile. I remember how my dad was interrogated by the highway police because of the car he was driving. You hear that a lot. If they had a nice car, they could be harassed. I heard from one of the interviewees that the Maryland house was one of the few places that they could go and sit down in. He was a traveling athlete. And so normally the coach would have to go to the back door and get the food, and then they would eat on the bus. So, yeah, thank you for that, Emily. All right. Any thoughts, Jim? You look
Uh,
sad.
hey, this is a dose of reality for me, and uh, now just one point of clarification. So it was always a national green book. They that was updated. There weren't regional ones.
So
It was
the
all
very
national. Is
first
that correct?
one, the first one was New York only. But after that, yes, it was national. And dude went international. He started doing the islands as well. Yeah, he went
Cool.
international. I guess that he probably just wanted to get to get around
Yeah.
in his retirement. So yeah, it was a national book. Yeah, yeah. Nebraska, all everywhere. Yep, yep. So let's look at these steps for researching Green Book businesses. Step one is to identify the Green Book locations, New York Public Library. Step two is to gather genealogical records. Step 3 is then to locate the businesses on maps and actually put them on a map. And step 4 is to conduct oral interviews, extremely important. Don't lose those stories. And step 5 is to share, write, and share the narratives. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Jim, thank you so much for helping me out
Okay.
with my quick start. Everyone, have a great evening. Where's my music? Where's my music?